Thank you for joining our webinar today. It's great to have so many familiar names on the call, but for those of you who don't know me, I'm Hugh Biddell. I'm head of the Charities and Not-for-Profit sector here at NatWest and RBS. I'm joined today by Tami, Godfrey, Danny Smith, Alex Topham, Mark Grimes, and Lee Johnson, who will all be covering different aspects today. The presentation will take just a bit over half an hour, and then there'll be Q&A time at the end. So I'm looking forward to interacting with you more then. Over the next hour, we're going to explore some of the themes and trends in the charity space and examine how digitalisation is impacting the sector, particularly in regard to the payments landscape. And to contextualise this further, we know and feel that the world is changing at a rapid pace with globalisation and the speed of digitisation. Increased connectivity in particular has sped up the way we interact and do business. Donors and volunteers want to give on their own terms, and they expect choice, minimum fuss and friction, but they still need to feel that warmth and engagement with the cause that you're so brilliant at providing. And that's affected the way you interact as they make the donations and payments, or you make grants, and it affects the complexity and speed of your reconciliation from these various sources. If we think about artificial intelligence, the cloud, big data, APIs, the Internet of Things, digitalisation and new technologies, we know these are helping you grow, thrive and adapt, but it's hard to keep up. And there are those out there to exploit and use the data in nefarious ways as people try to keep up with the change, both in terms of your donors and yourselves. Across the UK, we're talking to charities of all sizes as NatWest and see people making impact in many unique ways. We're engaging with different and overlapping groups, boards and sector bodies, and we know that the sector recognises and is at the forefront of the challenge from changes in climate and demographics, behaviour and attitudes in particular. And you're the people helping those in most need, some of whom are slower to be able to adapt to these challenges that we're seeing. There are also some issues that exist in the macroeconomic environment just now, with rising interest rates, higher inflation, higher energy costs, weakness in sterling, and a contested public domain that are creating challenges for you. And therefore, effective and efficient cash management becomes even more critical. And equally important is understanding how innovation and the use of different technologies can securely support growth and sustainability in the sector. We hope to cover a number of these areas, and I'm going to hand over Danny Smith to talk particularly, first of all, about the cash environment, which, as you know, has been changing and over time. Danny.
Thanks, Hugh, and it's great to be here. So I'm going to spend 5 minutes just talking about the analogue piece of payments before we get into the digital. So I've worked myself for 25 years in the cash industry, and it's safe to say a lot has changed in that period, particularly in probably the last 3 years. Historically, cash reduced roughly on average between 3 to 5% year on year, but obviously with the pandemic and the forced changes that happened during that period, we see quite a significant change. But that being said, there has been a rebound. We're now at roughly about 20% reduction to what we were at pre-pandemic levels. However, what you would have seen during that period is various articles and conversations where sentences like cash is dead, cashless society, the end of cash forever were being bandied around. But actually, that's not how it is. And I don't see it in that way. I see it as a less cash society rather than a cashless society. So some of the things that you may have heard during that period and some of the myths, as I would call them, not a lot of cash is around anymore. Well, actually, there's more cash in circulation now than there ever has been before. 95 billion in circulation. No one's using cash. Actually, 1 in 5 people out there use cash all or most of the time. And that's from all different walks of life. So there's usually a conversation that it's just the vulnerable. It's actually not. It's all walks of life for different reasons. Everyone's gone digital. Well, actually, 85% of people that use cash are digitally active. So they still use it, even though digital. It's just for the elderly, which is a common one that I think most people believe that is a generational thing when it comes to cash. Actually, what we're seeing is the growing propensity for the 18 to 24-year-old range to use cash more. And things like TikTok's cash stuffing trends of how to manage your money are actually pushing that further and further into that age range. And then you'll see there's been a steep decline and it's stayed. Well, actually, there was a big bounce back after the COVID. And the thing to remember with COVID is a lot of the changes were actually false. Shops weren't open. The ability to physically use cash declined in that period because you could not do it, not because people didn't want to do it. And what we've seen, as you can see, 24% more cash has been dispensed from our ATMs. The other thing I'd say about cash, and next slide, please, is it's emotional. So it's an emotional attachment for people. We've done a lot of insights and talked to a lot of consumers around how they feel about cash. And there's quite a few trends that have come out in this space. So a lot of people like cash for giving, the feeling that it gives, the physicality of it, the materialness that cash provides to people. It's inclusive. Most people understand it. And part of that is actually the learning piece as well. So cash is used to teach people about money management. So that period from learning to earning is a really key part for people. Choice is probably the biggest thing. People want choice. They want to do payments how they want to do that, be that in cash, be that through direct debit, be that through cards. What you see is actually most people do things in a variety of ways and they want that choice. Control is a big theme, especially at the moment during the cost of living crisis. The one thing cash does is it gives friction, and it gives friction before the event. People think more before they spend cash. They can control it. They see the wallet getting smaller. Therefore, they understand what they're doing. Rather than tapping a card, you lose that control. And it's really key to people, especially in times like this. Not just now, we've seen it during all of the crisis when it's come to financial pieces. People have reverted back to cash. And a backup, it's a key backup to people. If systems go down, cash is the thing that's relied on. So that emotional piece really comes through strong. And like I say, the choice is a key part of that. The problem you have with cash is it's a very expensive infrastructure. And we're almost in a cost of cash crisis at the moment. So there's been various things that have started and kicked off, both within the bank and across the industry, the wholesale cash industry, to look at how we can support people for the future, how we can provide that access to cash for both consumers and businesses, ways to deposit. It's in its infancy and it needs to continue. But some of the things that have happened and that we've done as NatWest, we are the only player in the cash market that controls the whole end-to-end cycle. So from the front end of dispensing and depositing cash facilities through to the back end of wholesale cash processing. We've got a number of products that deliver that for business customers. We help our customers avoid fees by giving them prompts when they've used ATMs and telling them where their nearest free-to-use is. We've got the largest free-to-use network in the UK of ATM devices. And then some of the more collaborative things. So we've invested a lot in the post office to ensure there's an infrastructure out there as branches and as infrastructure declines in one side, that you grow it in another, which enables people to have more facilities and businesses to deposit and withdraw their cash. We've supported the formation of Cash Action Group, which is rolling out hubs across the UK. They're not going as quick as we'd like at the moment, and we're working through that. But there is already hubs out there, and there will be more throughout this year, again, to deliver those services to people. And then we're supportive of the Financial Services and Markets Bill and the government, what the government are doing to protect the access to cash and make the FCA the lead regulator. But to make cash sustainable, we've got to continue in this space, look for new innovative ways that we can provide a service to our consumers, to our business customers, in a way that protects it for the future. I'm not here to say that cash is the king or it's what should be thought about all the time, but actually it's good to have it as a conscience to understand that it will be around for a long time, and we need to think about cash as part of our payments journey. Thanks for your time, and I'm now going to hand over to Alex.
Thank you, Danny. Good morning. My name is Alex Topham, and I work in the same team as Danny does in the payments area. And as Danny has there busted a few myths about the nature of cash, it's just worth highlighting again that for millions of Britons, cash is not a way of paying, it is the only way to pay. It's hard to track survey data, but we estimate around 10% of people will claim that they don't use cash in any particular month. That's a very small urban population. For as long as cash is needed, therefore, we and the industry will continue to support Britons in their needs to make those payments. But I'd like to also talk about other types of payments that we're also familiar with. And so what does the landscape look like? So I suppose the first point to make is UK payments, there are quite a lot of them that happen every single minute. In fact, 73,000 payments are going to occur every minute. And very roughly, that means that we're going to see something like 4 million payments made during the course of this presentation. For most of us, cards have become the invisible, simple, easy way to make those. They've become an almost invisible part of our lives. And in particular, this has been driven by the changes in contactless payments. In fact, just looking at them on their own, some 350 contactless payments are made every single second on average in the UK. And with apologies for making the slightly London-centric add-on to that, we now see over a third of the journeys that are made by Transport for London passengers and users don't even need a card to make that journey. They're simply done by a smart device. In the UK today, in terms of banking penetration, over 95% of Britons now have at least one bank account, of which a debit card is an integral part of that. Now, while we should be careful to assume, therefore, that means, given high internet usage and the debit card explosion, that means we've cracked digital, we should also bear in mind that millions of Britons, either now or in the future, will suffer some form of cognitive impairment or lack the skills, the confidence to manage their lives digitally. As an industry, we will continue to support these vulnerable and needy customers. However, we do touch 1 in 4 payments. And what does that messaging then start to tell us about the wider insight? Go to the next slide, please. So unfortunately, some of this information is ever so slightly stale as we're waiting for the new data to come out in about a month's time. But the macro picture overlaid with our own insights tells us that the lines are going to carry straight on as they are. I've drawn out a few key points in the boxes here, and I won't dwell on those here. But coming back to Danny's point, the pandemic was an accelerant of some of those the physical and digital changeover. It was a catalyst. It was not an accelerant, not the catalyst. COVID just basically compressed many of the things which had been going on into a base of 6 months because people couldn't shop in the normal way with normal payment types. And this has led to a significant change in the way we live and where we work and how we do that. It's inevitably enacting and changing the way we make payments too. In lockstep, because of the nature of the pandemic, mobile banking grew significantly. And during the first few months of the pandemic, we saw a 40% uplift in mobile banking registrations, increasingly meaning banking became something that you did, not somewhere you went. And with that, as well as simply checking your balances or moving money around, people thought and discovered you can actually make payments using a mobile phone. The sky won't fall in on you. But in the future, we're going to see different, new, interesting and challenging ways to make payments. How is the industry going to respond to some of those changes? Well, NatWest is in the process of discussing and negotiating these with a number of providers in the market in what is generically termed the new buzzword, payments orchestration. This is the process of integrating and managing multiple types of payments and being able to provide merchants, charities, businesses with the data that sits behind that to manage safely and efficiently the card data storage, to manage the data that comes through in terms of who's made a payment, how they made it, which channel, and to seize those opportunities safely, compliantly, and effectively for all customers. Next slide, please. So what are the drivers that we're seeing in these changes? And frankly, as I put this together, I dare say many of you and many organizations and industry could have put a graphic like this together because it describes most of what's going on at the moment. But there are different twists that are going on here that are also both impacting customers and changing the way we think about things. For those of you young enough to recall some of the earlier warnings that were given by society, by the police, don't get into strangers' cars or don't meet people online, essentially just describe the eHarmony, the dating app, and the Uber business model. In a couple of years' time, we will see a situation where over half the babies born in this country will be from parents who met online. The technology in your pocket is changing beyond all measure. My smartphone here, albeit a slightly more modern one, represents the processing power of the NatWest systems 10 years ago, such as the leaps and changes that are being made. And alongside that, those who use those technologies are changing. 20% of those aged 8 to 11 have a social media profile. The average age for owning a smartphone in the UK is now 10. You can now use a smart watch to program it, to call an ambulance if you're suffering from a particular need, simply based on where you are and whether you're moving at a particular time. And this is then in turn driving different forms of innovation. So we see buy now, pay later on the credit side. And we also see the opportunities the Bank of England is exploring in terms of central bank digital currencies, of which they are consulting at the moment. We see regulation driving many changes into this space. So access to cash has been a key driver in that space. But alongside that has been things like confirmation of paying, contact limit increase sizes, and open banking, which we'll be talking about a little bit later on. But finally, all of this is really impacting on the most important part of the equation, the donors, the citizens, the customers in the middle of this. However, they are divinely discontent. If you give them a book online in 3 days, they'll want it instantly. If you promise them something yesterday, they'll want it now. Their lives are 24/7, 365, synced and engaged. If they don't get what they want, they'll disconnect for you and leave some horrible remark for you to look at. All and any experiences, good or bad, becomes the standard. So the way they are judging the world is how good the energy provider was, how good their utility provider was, how good their finance firm was. And increasingly, and we say it to ourselves, why can't everything just be like Amazon? The next slide, please. But the good news is many institutions and many Britons have already made that analog to digital mindset change. For generations who are now transitioning, the younger pools of donors, they will be in that same space. We will need to continue to meet them. And returning to that theme of customer expectations, these are digital natives, and you must meet them in their world. These are people who, in the main, will not have used a corded phone, a public library, a map, a CD, or a camera. They won't need a television license because they stream everything. Is the £13 a month direct debit to the BBC something that you can maybe tap into for donation? And increasingly, there's a crossover. What they experience in their personal lives, they expect in their business lives. So if something's instant, simple, and easy, why can it not be like that in their treasury management operations? Yet against this background, as Danny has mentioned, millions of people will see through the value of cash. The population that doesn't carry cash is urban, and while growing, is very, very small. We are, as Danny said, moving to a less cash, not a cash-free society. And as I mentioned about the TfL as an example, it is our belief that we will go card-free, albeit the rails will be around, first, and cash-free sometime in the future. What might that brave new world look like? What are those technologies that might help us? And for this piece, I'd like to pass over to my next speaker, Lee. Thank you.
Hi, thank you very much, Alex. So what is an API? David, could we have the next slide? Thank you. What is an API? So an API is an acronym for a application programming interface. So basically what this means is these are small bits of code that enables applications to talk to each other. So very similar to like a messenger. So they act like a messenger. they quickly send data from one application platform or piece of software to another. As Alex mentioned, we actually use APIs in every single day, especially in Alex's example, where it's the taxi app. So what that does is it pulls data and the functionality from a separate map app, as well as allowing you to pay for your fares directly from your bank account within one seamless interaction. At NatWest, we want our customers to be able to benefit from the same level of secure connectivity to access our banking products and services. And we have been developing a suite of APIs just to do that as well. And we'll explain that a little bit further on in this presentation. Next slide, David, please. So on this particular slide, I'm going to go very high level. We have 3 APIs which are live and can be used today. There is also a link at the bottom of this slide that we'll share around afterwards as well, so you can get a bit more familiar and a bit more information about. So the first one is Account and Transaction API, which basically allows you to receive real-time balance and transaction information directly straight into your finance system. VRP, bank likes an acronym, but this is called Variable Recurring Payments, which is a new alternative to direct debit collection. So we'll go into that in a little bit more detail. I think Tami on this call is going to go into that in the next few slides. Confirmation of payee. So this is also known as COP API. This has revolutionized the security of payments. We have an API now that you can overlay all of your payments. That is also including BACS payments before they go out. We can also use that as a potential validation check for when you onboard donors, as a sort of almost like a KYC, KYB check as well. I'll hand you now over to Tami to talk more in depth about how some of these APIs actually come to life as well.
Thanks, Lee. Next slide, please. Hi, everyone. I'm Tami Godfrey. I'm Market Development Lead for Payit. And Payit, built by NatWest, is just one example of API use. And here it's to improve payments and payment reconciliation. It's aimed to help charities, businesses, and consumers to all benefit from this next generation of payments. Using open banking technology, Payit offers a way to collect donations and to send payouts to individuals and beneficiaries. For those looking to make a donation, Payit offers a safe, seamless account-to-account transfer. It's as easy as putting cash in a collection box. There's no risk of someone not being able to donate because their card isn't at hand, or card's not working, or indeed mistyping payment details. Payit can be used by anyone with a mobile or online banking, which is over 90% of the UK current account holders. You don't need to bank with NatWest. You don't need to download an app or sign up at all. There's no setup required. And Payit can facilitate collection both online and in person. If you'd like to experience this journey for yourself, there's a QR code just at the bottom of this slide. And so to make a donation, you would simply raise your mobile phone, scan the QR code and open the secure link, choose the bank that you'd like to make the donation from, securely sign into your own mobile banking app, confirm the account and pay. As you'll see if you try the journey, we can offer suggested donation amounts and also give flexibility for people to give their own choice. So this payment request, in this instance here expressed as a QR code, could equally be embedded in a social media campaign. It could appear as a button on a website or embedded into an email campaign. And in person, this could appear as a QR code on a poster or even on a t-shirt. For charities receiving donations this way, the payment settles in real time via the faster payment rails. And as an account-to-account payment method, Payit removes any need to capture and store card details. This reduces your data handling burden. Payit also will save you on card acquiring and card scheme fees. For charities sending payments, maybe to a beneficiary or paying out-of-pocket expenses to volunteers, Payit will enable the payment to be sent in real time. And to ensure the money goes to the intended recipient and to protect against fraud, we've embedded the confirmation of payee API that Lee referenced earlier. You can create single payouts or batch payments. You just need 2 pieces of information, say the email address and the volunteer reference number, and then a mobile telephone number of the recipient, and Payit will do the rest. If you'd like a demonstration, then please speak to your relationship manager. Next slide, please. The payments we've discussed so far were all single immediate payments, and the next wave of technology we're building enables recurring payments, or VRPs. So VRPs use this same seamless open banking API connectivity to support recurring payments. And the aim is to provide payers more control and greater transparency, a better experience when making a regular account-to-account payment. For charities, VRPs will provide a new alternative to direct debit or card on file or recurring payment authorities or standing orders. And it offers similar flexibility. VRPs can enable a series of payments for a customer at variable amounts at variable time intervals and with lower fees, no chargebacks and immediate settlement. And all this means that account-to-account payments can be offered across more use cases. In terms of charity, that could mean someone paying a registration deposit and then a full balancing payment later. For customers, VRPs provide an enhanced experience, a very quick payment journey, the security of a bank facilitating it, no sharing of account details or card details, which helps to be held on any system for future use. This protects everyone should you be hacked as a company, for example. And like direct debit, once set up, a VRP will offer peace of mind. Customers don't need to worry about up-and-coming payments. There is no risk of going overdrawn with a VRP, and it gives them additional transparency and control. A customer can review their VRPs in their online or banking app and can revoke consent at any time. So this capability means VRPs provide both businesses and their customers greater visibility and control over their finances. Now, VRPs are in their early stage of development, and Payit is one of the only companies to be piloting in this space with live customers. Next slide, please. So in summary, these APIs offer benefits to all parties. The benefits for donors are there is no sharing of personal or financial information, and therefore no risk associated with that information being stored. It offers an instant first payment and instant settlement if desired, and there are 0 payment failures. The benefits for charities are no storage of data, reducing your burden, no manual keying in of information, no need to process card payments, lower fraud risk, greater transparency of mandates, a better donor experience in the event of mandate cancellation, with options for caps and expiry dates. So really, this is a solution built for the mobile economy. Next slide, please. We'll now run through a quick video, and then it's time for a poolside chat with Lee and Mark. Please run the video.
A new, smarter payment method is coming to the UK that's great news for both consumers and businesses. Introducing variable recurring payments, versatile banking solutions that change the way consumers pay and businesses get paid. VRPs bring simplicity, security, control, and flexibility to payments. They're fast and more cost efficient, using the very latest in bank API technology. They're smarter for consumers who can easily set up regular payments through their bank app, create maximum limits, or cancel them altogether, all with the tap of a button. They'll enjoy a smoother buying experience, real-time notifications, and be able to see all their payments in one place. And they're smarter for merchants, who can now collect customer payments faster in near real time. No more delays mean they can make more of their cash flow. And because VRPs are set up digitally, There's no messy paperwork or need to hold sensitive customer banking details, saving time and reducing the risk of fraud and manual error, which could lead to greater brand loyalty and higher conversion rates. A UK market first from NatWest, VRPs have the potential to unlock more value for everyone, whether you're an established retailer or a new market entrant. They're the secure, fast and more cost-efficient way to pay. VRPs, smarter all round. Get ahead of the game and see what they could do for you. Find out more at bankofapis.com. NatWest. Tomorrow begins today.